I took my wife and daughter to the airport. 2 days later, my kid was still there. I'm Mark, 38, a marketing executive, a pretty average guy in Manhattan. Married 10 years to Sophie, a luxury event planner with the kind of laugh that could light up a room, or, as I found out, a hotel suite. And then there's Daniel Whitmore, sleek, silver-tongued, corporate lawyer, Manhattan's poster boy for moral bankruptcy. And his wife? Victoria, the dark horse in this story. Now, let's talk about the day my world was face-planted into a pit of fire. It was just another Tuesday morning, eggs hissing in the pan and coffee brewing, when I noticed Sophie's phone on the counter. Unlocked. Weird. My wife never, and I mean never, leave her phone unlocked. Not even when she's in the shower. I used to joke that she was guarding state secrets. But that morning? She was in a rush, makeup half done, purse swinging as she dashed upstairs for something she forgot. Her phone buzzed. A normal guy might have ignored it. Let's be honest, if this were 5 years ago, I would have. But something in me, a gut instinct or maybe just dumb, bitter fate, made me glance. And then I saw it. Can you come earlier? Can't wait to see you again. From a guy named Daniel. I froze. At first, my brain did that thing where it tried to patch the crack with denial. Work text? Cousin? Interior decorator with bad boundaries? Nope. Against my better judgment and fully knowing I was about to ruin my entire life, I picked up the phone. Opened the message thread. Bad idea. Or maybe the best idea I ever had, depending on how twisted your sense of justice is. The thread was a sick novella. Mentions of hotel rooms, that night in Midtown, late-night meetings at lounges. And yes, more emojis than I ever want to see associated with my wife and another man. I can still smell your perfume on my jacket. You were amazing last night. Same time next week. Wear that red dress I like. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. 10 years of marriage, holidays with her parents, our dumb inside jokes, all sliced up by digital evidence. She was cheating. Sophie, the woman I bought a ring for while working 2 jobs just to afford it, was sleeping with some slimeball named Daniel. I stood in the kitchen like a statue, the skillet burning behind me, her phone vibrating again with another dose of poison. The world stopped spinning. She came back downstairs, radiant, confident, totally unaware that I had just been gutted alive. She kissed me on the cheek. Dinner with colleagues tonight. Don't wait up, she chirped. I said nothing. Just nodded like an idiot. And then she left. I stood there, staring at the door after it clicked shut behind her. Still holding her phone, still smelling the betrayal in the air like scorched eggs and perfume. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. My body wouldn't let me. I sat down. And I planned. I had a name. Daniel. And a mission. Burn everything. The first thing I did after Sophie left that morning was pour myself a cup of now bitter coffee and sit down at the kitchen table like a war general preparing for battle. I had a name, Daniel. No last name. Just a bunch of thirsty texts and a contact photo where the man looked like he moisturized with stolen trust funds. I spent hours digging. Her texts mentioned lunch at Lexington, suite at the Donovan, and your last closing argument had me weak. Bingo. Lawyer. A few social media cross-references later and some questionable but brilliant use of LinkedIn search filters, I had him. Daniel Whitmore. Senior litigation partner at a high-end Manhattan firm. Featured in Forbes's Top 30 Under 30 before his hairline started receding. Charity gala regular. Probably owns 4 different P-codes. But here's the kicker, he was married. Wife's name was Victoria. A former fashion exec turned philanthropist according to her immaculate Instagram grid. The kind of woman who could probably kill you with a glance and a stiletto heel. Her captions read like luxury ad copy. Power isn't loud. It's tailored. I stared at her picture for a long time. Blonde. Graceful. Sharp eyes. A woman who looked like she never let anything slide. She needed to know. And yeah, maybe part of me hoped she'd burn him herself so I could watch. Maybe we'd both get closure. Or maybe, just maybe, we'd do something together that neither of them could recover from. I rehearsed it all as I waited outside their high-rise building the next day. It was chilly, one of those late fall afternoons where the wind stings just enough to keep your rage simmering. Then she appeared. Tailored black coat. Boots that could survive a war zone. Phone in hand, sunglasses on, walking like the sidewalk belonged to her ancestors. I stepped forward. Victoria. She paused, turning slowly. Eyebrows raised. Do I know you? No, I said. But I know something you don't. And I think you deserve to. She didn't flinch. Just studied me for a second. Then glanced down at her phone. Walk, she ordered, turning on her heel. I followed like I'd just been summoned. We ended up at a boutique cafe tucked between 2 designer stores. The type of place that doesn't have a menu and probably serves espresso from beans blessed by monks. Victoria sat across from me, calm but coiled, like she was restraining the urge to decapitate someone with her teaspoon. I showed her the messages. I had taken screenshots from Sophie's phone before she got back that night. She said nothing. Just read. One after another. Scrolling. Her lips were tight. Her hand was steady. And then she handed my phone back. How long, she asked. From what I can tell, at least 6 months. Maybe longer. Victoria looked past me for a moment. Then back. And your wife thinks you don't know? Correct. She nodded, took a sip of her espresso. Then place it down gently. I want in. In. Whatever you're planning, she said, voice like polished ice. I'm in. I stared at her, stunned. You want to team up? She leaned forward. If you think I'm going to let that smug bastard get away with humiliating me in half the lounges in Manhattan, you're out of your mind. I blinked. This woman wasn't just angry. She was tactical. Dangerous. We could hit them where it hurts, I offered cautiously. Their image. Their little secrets. Their precious social circles. She smirked. Revenge is best served at room temperature with a glass of Chardonnay and a room full of eyes. That's when the plan really started forming. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. Victoria didn't just want payback. She wanted theater. She wasn't crying. She wasn't unraveling. She was rehearsing. Victoria and I didn't waste time. The day after our cafe meeting, she called me at 7 a.m. sharp. No greeting. I have the perfect event, she said. It's a gala. Formal. High profile. A who's who of our social circles. They'll be there. Both of them. Always are. It's the kind of party Sophie lives for, and Daniel can't resist being seen. There it was. The stage. She texted me the invite to the Metropolitan Humanitarian Fundraiser. An elite ballroom venue, tuxedos, champagne fountains, and a $10,000 a plate kind of deal. It was 2 weeks away. 2 weeks to build the perfect scandal. We spent every single day prepping like we were launching a military op. Victoria handled social positioning. She dropped hints to mutual friends, started swirling her name into the event gossip, and casually mentioned she'd be bringing someone new. Meanwhile, I handled Sophie. I acted normal. Cooked dinner. Laughed at her work stories. Even picked up dry cleaning. But every moment was a quiet performance. She kept texting Daniel on that same phone. Kept up the lies. Gala's going to be so boring unless I sneak away with you. Mark is completely clueless. Oh, sweetheart. If only. Victoria and I met 3 more times, once at a wine bar, once at a co-working lounge, and once in her ridiculous penthouse where I saw just how well Daniel had been living on lies. That last meeting was when we finalized the plan. Here's what we do, she said, laying out a printed floor plan of the ballroom. They'll arrive separately but meet inside. They always do. And we show up together. Exactly. She smirked. Let them see us laughing. Let them guess. Then when the whole room's watching, we give them a gift. A gift? She reached into a leather folder and slid across a printed ribbon-tied packet. Inside? A curated selection of texts. Photos. 1 hotel receipt. It was damning but artful. Each envelope will be hand-delivered, she said, eyes gleaming. To every major donor. Every board member. Every smug socialite who ever kissed Daniel's ring. And Sophie. Victoria grinned. Her boss will get one. So will her assistant. And her mom. I couldn't help but laugh. You're terrifying. No, she said, standing. I'm thorough. The week before the gala, Sophie was bouncing off the walls. I found the perfect dress, she said, twirling in the living room. I haven't felt this excited in forever. I watched her with a stone face. You're going to look stunning. You're not mad I'm going alone? She asked. Not at all, I lied. Let her think she was in control. Let her feel powerful. On the night of the gala, I dressed in a black tailored suit. Victoria wore a wine-red gown that was made for slow-motion reveals. She handed me a glass of bourbon before we stepped into the car. No turning back, she said. I nodded. Let's set the place on fire. And we rolled toward destruction, driven by betrayal, dressed like elegance, armed with receipts. The Metropolitan Humanitarian Fundraiser was held at the Astoria Grand Ballroom. Think golden ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and staff who look like they moonlight as assassins. Victoria and I arrived fashionably late, of course. As the driver opened our car door, camera flashes popped like firecrackers. She stepped out first, a goddess in red silk. I followed, nerves buried under smug composure. Smile, she murmured, looping her arm into mine. This is the fun part. Inside, the room buzzed with elegance and ego. Men in tuxes, women in floor-length gowns, jazz weaving through the chatter. And then we saw them. Sophie stood near the champagne bar, laughing at something Daniel said. She wore the dress she claimed she bought for solo attendance. The liar's glow-up was strong. Daniel, predictably smug in a custom navy suit. I'd bet money he picked it just to look expensive when committing moral crimes. They didn't see us at first. Victoria and I mingled, clinking glasses and exchanging pleasantries with board members and mutual acquaintances. The whole time, her assistant, bless that terrifying woman, was slipping personalized envelopes into the hands of carefully selected guests. Donors, colleagues, board chairs, family. Each envelope was embossed, elegant, just like the people it was about to wreck. Then, at precisely 9:05 p.m., Victoria and I made our approach. Daniel noticed me first. I watched the blood drain from his face like a cheap cocktail through a napkin. Sophie turned, and the color in her cheeks disappeared instantly. She blinked. "Mark." "Evening," I said, voice smooth as my bourbon. "Fancy seeing you here." Sophie laughed nervously, stepping away from Daniel. I didn't think you were coming." "Oh, I wouldn't miss it," I said. "Big night, big crowd, big secrets." Victoria stepped beside me, smiling like a Bond villain in heels. "Hello, darling," she said to Daniel, voice dipped in honey and cyanide. "Having a good time?" He tried to speak. Failed. Tried again. "Vic, this isn't the place." "No, it's perfect," she interrupted. "Exactly the place." The room was starting to quiet. We had an audience. Whispers circled like sharks smelling blood. Envelopes had been opened. Some guests were staring at Sophie and Daniel with slack jaws. Others were already recording. Sophie reached for my arm. "Mark, can we talk in private?" Pulled away. "You've had enough secrets, Sophie. This one's mine." Victoria stepped forward, facing Daniel. "Tell me, when you said you had a late deposition, was that before or after she took off that red dress?" The gasp from a woman nearby was theatrical perfection. Daniel muttered, "We should leave." Victoria cocked her head. "Oh, you will. But not before every one of your donors reads about how you've been screwing your mistress in between charity meetings." "Vic, save it," she snapped. "You're a punchline in your own scandal." Sophie tried again, voice small. "Mark, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stared at her. Started. "You meant every hotel room. Every lie. Every, 'I love you,' he got that I didn't." Her eyes brimmed. "It was a mistake." "No," I said. "You made a choice." Then I turned to Victoria. "Ready?" She smiled. "Let's vanish while they drown." And we walked out. Behind us, reputations unraveled. Daniel was cornered by a furious board member. Sophie sank into a chair, mascara smudging. Guests whispered. Phones buzzed. The gala became a war zone in formal wear. Victoria's assistant met us in the valet circle. "All packets delivered," she said calmly. "Stage successfully torched." Victoria raised her champagne flute. "Where the hell she got it, I'll never know." "To karma," she said. I clinked my glass to hers. The fallout wasn't just a storm, it was a goddamn hurricane. I didn't even have to wait a full day. The morning after the gala, my phone exploded. Missed calls, voicemails, emails from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Apparently, Sophie had shown up to her office in tears, only to be pulled into a special meeting with HR and her supervisor. Why? Because half the client list at her firm got the packet. Some of those clients had family on the gala board. Turns out adultery, especially when it's this loud, is bad for luxury event planning. She was put on leave, pending review. Translation, her career was dangling by a thread. Daniel didn't fare any better. According to Victoria, who had access to more dirt than the FBI, his law firm was in full panic mode. Their name was trending badly. Some donors had threatened to pull out of a huge charity deal. Worse, one of the board members was a senior partner at the firm. And guess what he got in his fancy little envelope? A full-color printout of Daniel describing Sophie's lingerie surprise. Professional suicide via stationery. I should have felt satisfied. And for a while I did. Victoria and I kept our contact cool and strategic. She sent updates like weather reports. "He's been locked out of his office. She's trying to reach you. Don't answer. Press may be sniffing." And Sophie? Oh, she tried. She texted. She called. She even showed up at my apartment once, mascara streaked, voice cracking. "Mark, please? We can fix this." I was confused. "I made mistakes. But I love you." I didn't open the door. She sat outside for almost an hour. Eventually left a letter tucked into the handle. I didn't read it. You'd think it'd feel cold. But honestly, it felt like survival. I gave her 10 years of my life. 10 years of loyalty, of trust. And she spent months gaslighting me while sneaking around with a man who used cologne as personality. She didn't get closure. Not from me. Victoria, on the other hand, was thriving. 2 weeks after the gala, she sent me a picture from St. Tropez. "Recharge trip," she wrote. "Sunlight makes vengeance sparkle." And me? I wasn't thriving yet. But I wasn't breaking anymore either. I started running again. Cleaning out the apartment. Making playlists without Sophie in mind. That's when the email came. Subject, "Can we meet?" From Daniel. The audacity. The nerve. The absolute lack of shame. He wrote, "I know you probably want to kill me. But I need to talk. Man to man. It's not what it looked like." I stared at it for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Victoria. She replied within minutes. Block him. Let him drown in the silence. And I did. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't explosive. Sometimes it's the echo of everything they can't fix. Revenge is loud. But what they don't tell you is how quiet everything gets after. 2 weeks turned into 3. Then 4. The world moved on, but I hadn't. The inbox stopped buzzing. Sophie had stopped texting. Daniel thankfully vanished back into whatever lawyer cave he crawled from. And I was just alone. I didn't realize how much of my identity was tangled in being Sophie's husband. The one who always showed up. The planner. The fixer. The guy with the steady hand and the spare charger. Now I was the guy whose wife got publicly destroyed for cheating. I started avoiding mutual friends. Ghosted a few group chats. Cancelled brunch plans I never really wanted to go to anyway. I needed space. Air. Time to figure out what the hell came next. That's when Victoria called. Not a text. Not an email. A full voice call. I let it ring twice before answering. Didn't think I'd hear from you again, I said. You sounded like you needed a voice, she replied. You okay? I hesitated. Define okay. There was a pause. Then, softly. Do you want company or solitude? Both. She laughed. That's what wine is for. Come over. I did. Her penthouse looked different this time. Less like a fortress and more like a home. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and garlic. There were fuzzy socks on the couch. A record playing low in the background. We didn't talk about Sophie or Daniel. Not at first. Just about books, music, travel. Things we hadn't had time to feel when we were too busy destroying everything else. You know, she said, sipping wine, I used to think revenge was the end. Like, once I torched his life, I'd feel finished. And? I don't, she admitted. I feel cleaner. But also hollow. Same. She looked at me. Looked. I'm not asking you to be my next chapter, Mark. But I wouldn't mind being your comma. It hit me in the gut. Because I hadn't let myself feel anything in weeks. But I felt something then. We didn't sleep together that night. But we did fall asleep on the couch, her head on my shoulder, a shared silence that didn't feel empty. The next morning she made pancakes. Burned them. We laughed like teenagers. For the first time in over 2 months, I remembered what it felt like to not be drowning. And then, right as I left, she handed me a letter. From Sophie, she said. It showed up at my door. I didn't read it. Thought you should. I didn't want to. But I took it. And when I got home, I opened it. I stared at Sophie's envelope for 2 full hours. It sat on my kitchen table like a live grenade, one I wasn't sure I had the strength to defuse. Finally, I opened it. Her handwriting was careful. Neat. Almost performative, like even her regrets needed to look pretty. Mark? If you're reading this, it means you didn't throw it out. Thank you for that. I know I don't deserve it. I've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out what to say. How to apologize for the fact that I took our life and split it down the middle. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I know I detonated everything. I know I lied to your face. I betrayed you with a man who didn't even mean what I thought he did. I lost myself, and worse, I dragged you down with me. But I need you to know this wasn't about you not being enough. You were always good to me. Too good. I think I resented that. I think I wanted something reckless and destructive because I couldn't deal with how much I didn't deserve the life we built. I ruined it. But you didn't. You were the best part of it. If nothing else, I hope one day you find peace. And someone who sees you fully and never once lets go. I'm sorry. Sophie. I read it twice. Maybe 3 times. And then I left. Not out of joy. Out of exhaustion. The woman who broke me into pieces had finally admitted it, too late, too far gone. It wasn't closure. It was a tombstone. I didn't cry. I burned the letter in my sink. Watched the flames curl her words into ash. It felt, right? Like her voice didn't belong in my home anymore. I called Victoria later that night. I read it, I said. And? She regrets everything. But she regrets it too late. There was a pause. Do you feel lighter? She asked. No, I said. But I feel finished. That weekend, I packed up the last of Sophie's things. Photos, books, the coffee mugs she picked out. All of it went into a box labeled memory. I dropped it off at her sister's place. No note. No call. And then I went home. Alone. But free. Later that night, Victoria and I met for dinner. No plans. No plotting. Just 2 people who'd walked through the same fire and somehow came out not entirely scorched. She raised a glass. To endings. I raised mine. And beginnings. We didn't kiss. We didn't rush. But when she laughed at something I said, I realized I hadn't heard that sound in my life in a very, very long time. And for the first time in months. I smiled and meant it. Would you have forgiven Sophie? Could you ever trust someone again after something like this? Or would you, like Mark, let the ashes speak for themselves? Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.